John Nolte, one of my very first editors as I was writing at the very beginning of the whole Breitbart / Tea Party days. John Nolte became a friend and a great editor. Welcome to the Dr. Gina Show, John Nolte.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's always good to talk to you. Thanks for having me on.
Always good to have you as well. And you have grown within the organization. My goodness, you were you used to edit only one section of Breitbart. Now you are doing tons of editing and work, and in a lot of ways running big parts of the show. And how has Breitbart changed since the early days? Tell us about that.
Well, I think the main change has been the site itself. The first time I spoke with Andrew at length ever in my life, he talked about wanting to start with Big Hollywood and then to create other websites from there, and then to create a hub to bring all these websites underneath. And right before Andrew died, I mean literally days before Andrew died, maybe a day or two, we were trained on this new website that he had designed. So we went from a page for Big Hollywood and a page for big journalism and a page for big government to a Breitbart news site, a main page, and now these other sites, which were their own main pages, are now just landing pages within the Breitbart empire. So we had this main page where we could take all our best stories and put it on the front page. It's sort of drudge, but we don't link out. We write our own content on the front page. So that's really been the main change, and it's just been a boon for the site, and I think a boon for the movement too, because it allows us to focus on certain things and say this is important and this is what we think is news. So it's been a driver of traffic as well as I think a driver of narrative. Absolutely.
And now you're editor at large of Breitbart News, and lots of stories breaking at Breitbart News as well. One of the things you've done a lot of talking about that a lot of media outlets just haven't talked about at all is, of course, the whole Gosnell thing. Tell us what's happening on that. There are some recent developments that you're keeping track of.
Yeah, I think the most important development occurred Friday when the media, there was sort of this, it'd been bubbling in new media, the story of this horrific abortion doctor who's accused of 7 murders of babies and the murder of a patient. And it sort of it reached critical mass on Friday. And the media actually became aware of the story, or they're pretending they're aware of the story. You had a number of mea culpas from, including the Washington Post, saying, yeah, we should have been covering this. So the development today is that we have a report that these outlets have actually shown up at the trial. I think it was Friday we ran a photograph of the media section at the Gosnell trial, which was completely empty. And today we're being told that the Washington Post is there, the New York Times is there, the Wall Street Journal's there, Fox News is there, I think it's Kimberly Guilfoyle, and a bunch of other media outlets. So the story got plenty of attention on Friday. It's been kind of quiet today, but I think the media is going to be catching up. And I think once the media figures out that one of the big stories of this is that it's not a local crime story, but that it's a complete and utter failure of the government to oversee these clinics.
Right.
This guy, for 20 years, literally got away with murder, allegedly. And now, so I think that they're going to see that politics played into this, and that it was a huge letdown as far as oversight. And even if you're pro-choice, which I'm not, even if you believe in abortion, you should be horrified by the fact that women who were going in to have something legal done, and I'm horrified by this, and I'm not pro-choice, were victimized, were exploited, were made ill. They were the victims of malpractice. They got sick. They died. And it just wasn't just one patient that died. There were other patients who died from various infections. So even if you're in favor of abortion, you have to look at this case and go, how can this happen? If it's legal, people should be able to have safe, clean abortions. And that wasn't happening here because there was no oversight.
Yeah, and I always wonder, I always like to flip these situations and think to myself, what would have happened if the situation were reversed? If there were, for example, a clinic who was, under the name of, abortion counseling or pro-life counseling, one of these centers for helping moms facing that decision, were accused of, let's just say, paying women not to have abortions, or just some scandal like that. It would be splashed across every news channel, every major network news, every liberal blog outlet. They'd be screaming about it, calling us fascists, God knows what else. But there is such a political correctness to our lamestream media, working in collusion, unfortunately, with the statist left, that it's really, there's a whole different measure of hypocrisy these days, isn't there, John?
It's a breathtaking hypocrisy, and I don't even consider it hypocrisy. I just consider it outright corruption. They know what they're doing, and they just don't.
That's a
care.
good point.
And it's so far beyond just bias and being in the bubble. I mean, I just wrote a story today. I told Barry Lee of the Washington Post. The executive editor of the Washington Post says he didn't even know about the Gosnell story until last Thursday night.
Wow.
And you could say, well, okay, the fact that the Washington Post didn't cover it isn't bias. It's because of the bubble. But it's just the opposite. The bias creates the bubble because they don't want any part of new media. They don't want any part of conservative new media. They don't want any part of social media. They don't want to know what Fox News is talking about. So they just shut it off because to them that opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah,
so
and I don't buy it.
Executive editor.
Yeah,
no, I don't buy it.
Yeah, I don't buy it at all. I you're a journalist. You're trained to find stories. This story has been out there. It's been all over conservative social media, all over Breitbart, all over many of the conservative blogs. And they monitor our conservative blogs, and we know it because they're out there trying to nail us all the time. So we know that. So it's just a patent lie, and it needs to be called out. One other thing I want to get to with you before we run out of time, this whole situation. If you're watching this from the squishy middle, which is where most people we know, sadly, are watching politics take place from, if they're watching it at all, is this whole gun control thing, this whole background check thing, as it relates to the Sandy Hook murders. And you've got them out there, and they're watching this, and they're seeing Marco Rubio, and they're seeing the Sunday shows this week. And I'm sorry, I'm talking about immigration, not guns. I don't know how I went to guns, but I've been talking about guns the whole show, and now I'm on immigration. And so you might not know where you stand on immigration. You know there's a problem. You know something's wrong. And yet you're not exactly sure what the answers are. It's complicated, and unless you've really studied it like you and I have, you may not know. So you see Rubio out there, and he looks like a nice, clean-cut guy, and you might be kind of a squishy, middle, moderate Republican, and you might be thinking, okay, I don't know where this stands. You should have it all defined for you now that Karl Rove has come out and said Marco Rubio is the hero of heroes due to this whole situation with the illegal immigration bill. What do you think about that?
Well, I have to say that I depart a little bit with my friends on the right on this issue. There's a lot I like about Marco Rubio's bill that I think a lot of conservative people don't. A lot of my colleagues don't. I'm in favor of a path to citizenship, and I like the way that they're laying it out in the bill. But that aside, my personal opinion aside, the problem that I have with this, strictly just from someone who covers journalism, and it's the same thing we saw with the guns. The media never allows someone with an opposing point of view on the air.
Right.
So they'll make Marco Rubio a star,
right?
Because right now he's saying the right thing,
right? So
he does 7 Sunday shows. But where's the thoughtful Republican to get on there and say, this is what I think is wrong with the gun bill. This is the Manchin-Toomey gun bill. This is what I think is wrong with the Gang of Eight's immigration bill. They never do that. So even someone who likes what Rubio's doing, me, it sickens me that there's no other point of view out there. And the media just kills that point of view. They snuff it out because they don't want it to get out there because they're worried it might be persuasive.
Yeah, that's it. And you pointed to that so well, of course, on Breitbart today, saying, that now he's become the hero. We should all be perhaps even more skeptical, even if we are in the same mindset as you are, that there might be some good points in this whole thing. So yeah, that's the honest journalism that we can't get at all ever from the left. People like you who are journalists saying, you know what, I actually kind of agree with him on this, but I'm immediately skeptical when he's all of a sudden made a hero, and on virtually every single Sunday show that happens, all of a sudden he's heralded, and because there is never the dissenting conversation, and that should disturb anyone who calls himself a journalist, but it doesn't anymore, John.
No, it doesn't, and it's one of the things that the media has done to create this pseudo reality where they're right. They just don't allow opposite opinions on. They don't allow some. I mean, they'll let a wacko on.
Yeah.
You know, they'll let someone on there who says, "We need to ship them all back to Mexico. Get the buses and the guns, and let's get them back there." They'll let someone like that on. But an intelligent, thoughtful conservative who could say, "Listen, this is why I think the bill's wrong." They don't let them anywhere near, so they create this bubble where there's only one opinion, and if there's another opinion, it's a racist, or if there's another opinion, it's Ted Nugent the gun nut. Instead of someone who could say, this is why the Manchin-Toomey bill shouldn't be put through, this is why it's a backdoor registration. And they just don't do it. So even though I like Rubio's bill, I think the coverage of this, it's just the same old from the corrupt media.
Yeah, exactly. Well, John, we all sure appreciate what you do every day at Breitbart, and I am certainly one who has watched the whole organization grow and watched you grow and what you're doing, and I use it, as I said on my show, most every day, and I thank you so much for all the hard work you do. Folks, of course, can find you at Breitbart.com, right? Correct? Is that how? I mean, it's bookmarked on my computer. Yep. So.
Yeah, it's Breitbart. It's Breitbart.com. That's right. And we thank you for all your support over the years, too. Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Love to have you back, John. Thanks so much.
Anytime. Thank you. Take care.
Take care.